In 2013, a string of brutal murders terrorized Texas. The killings were precise, cold, calculated. No fingerprints, no witnesses, just young women disappearing, only to be found days later, carefully posed, their bodies eerily pristine. The media called him the Bayou Phantom, a predator who struck without warning and left without a trace. For years, law enforcement chased shadows, every lead turning cold. But then, in the most unexpected way, DNA changed everything. The latest victim, 23-year-old Emily Rodriguez, was the kind of person everyone loved. Bright, kind, with dreams of opening her own bakery in Houston. She had gone missing after leaving her shift at a local cafe. Her car was found abandoned on a desolate road, her purse untouched on the passenger seat. Days later, a fisherman discovered her body near the Trinity River. Staged, lifeless. Another victim of the Bayou Phantom. Forensics scoured the crime scene, but, as always, there was nothing. Then, buried deep under Emily's fingernails, they found it. A microscopic trace of sweat. A single drop, invisible to the eye. For the first time, they had DNA. The DNA was rushed to the lab. Investigators held their breath. If the killer had a criminal record, this could finally be the break they needed. The results came back. No match. It was both a breakthrough and a dead end. The killer wasn't in the system. But law enforcement had another tool, genetic genealogy. Detectives turned to a private database used for ancestry research. Days passed. Then, a hit, not to the killer himself, but to his second cousin. From there, it was a painstaking process, mapping out family trees, narrowing suspects, eliminating possibilities. And then, one name stood out. Matthew Caldwell, a 42-year-old mechanic in a quiet Texas town. No criminal record. Married. 2 kids. A man who lived an ordinary life. But as investigators dug deeper, something didn't add up. Caldwell had moved across state lines 4 times in the last 20 years. Each move followed an unsolved murder. His wife, when questioned, seemed uneasy. She insisted he was a good man, a family man, but her eyes told another story. Fear, hesitation. Then detectives found something that changed everything. 10 years ago, Caldwell had been engaged to a woman named Sarah Mills. She vanished without a trace. Reported missing. Never found. The case was cold. But now, with Caldwell in their sights, detectives reopened it. And what they uncovered was chilling. Sarah's family had always suspected foul play, but there had been no evidence. No body. No proof. Then a forensic technician had an idea. They tested items from Sarah's old apartment for touch DNA. If Caldwell had been there, he might have left behind microscopic traces. Days later, the results came in. A DNA match. The same DNA found under Emily Rodriguez's fingernails. Caldwell had been there. And suddenly, the case wasn't just about Emily. It was about every woman who had ever disappeared near him. A full surveillance operation was launched. Caldwell was watched, tracked, studied. Then, late one night, as he took out the trash, officers moved in. He barely resisted. No shouting, no pleading, just a slow, knowing smirk. "I figured you'd show up eventually," he murmured. In the interrogation room, detectives laid out their evidence. The DNA, the victims, the timeline. Caldwell remained silent. Then, after hours of questioning, he exhaled deeply, leaned forward, and said, "You don't know the half of it." Detectives exchanged glances. Then Caldwell smiled, a slow, unsettling grin. "Check the old well," he whispered. A pause. The room went cold. "What well?" Caldwell's eyes gleamed. "You'll see." What was in the well? How many more victims were there? And just how deep did Caldwell's crimes go? Detectives stared at Matthew Caldwell, their hearts pounding. "What well?" one finally asked. Caldwell just smirked. "The one behind my grandfather's old cabin. You might want to bring a few body bags." The air in the interrogation room thickened. This wasn't just a confession. It was an invitation to uncover horrors buried for years. Within hours, a forensic team and cadaver dogs descended on the property. The well, half hidden by overgrown weeds, loomed like a forgotten grave. When investigators peered inside, the stench hit them first. Then they saw the bones. Authorities worked through the night. Skull fragments, femurs, shreds of clothing long faded by time. Each discovery painted a gruesome picture. Caldwell's crimes went further back than anyone had imagined. In total, 7 sets of remains were recovered. Some victims matched missing persons cases from the past 2 decades. Others? No records, no names, just skeletons swallowed by the darkness. But one stood out, a gold locket, barely tarnished, clutched in skeletal fingers. Inside, a faded picture of Sarah Mills, the woman who was never supposed to be found. Confronted with the evidence, Caldwell's smirk faded. Sarah fought. He finally muttered, didn't want to go in, but in the end they all did. His voice was flat, detached, like he was recalling an old chore. Investigators pressed him for more. How many? Why? But Caldwell shrugged. I don't remember, he said. Could be more, could be less. Then he leaned in, eyes gleaming. Does it matter? As Caldwell awaited trial, forensic genealogists ran another test on the unidentified remains. Then a bombshell. One of the skeletons belonged to a girl reported missing in 1995. Caldwell would have been just 14 years old. Had he started that young? Had his crimes spanned 3 decades? The FBI took over. If Caldwell had killed at 14, there could be more bodies, more towns, more families waiting for answers. And Caldwell? He just smiled. Months later, in a packed courtroom, the jury listened to every horrifying detail. Caldwell never expressed remorse. He sat still, hands folded, lips curled in amusement, until the judge spoke. Matthew Caldwell, you're sentenced to life without parole. For the first time, his smirk faltered, but the case wasn't truly over. The FBI was still digging. The well was just the beginning. And Caldwell? He wasn't talking. How many more victims were out there? Would the full truth ever be known? Maybe Caldwell thought he'd take his secrets to the grave. But DNA had other plans.